Members, we have reached the appointed time and have reached a quorum. Please return to your seats. We are now going to hold the election for chairman for the panel on housing. The Secretariat has already issued a notice to members that only one valid nomination was received by the deadline for nomination for the election of chairman. Ms. Alice Mack has been recommended. Mr. Stanley made the nomination, seconded by Mr. Vincent Chang. As Ms. Alice Mack is not a chairman of another panel, nor is a chairman or deputy chairman of a relevant government advisory body. Therefore, in accordance with the rules of procedure, the House rules, I announce that Ms. Alice Mack has been elected as chairman of the panel on housing. May I invite Ms. Alice Mack to preside over the meeting. Thank you for member support. We now move on to the election of deputy chairman of the panel on housing for the 2022 session. The Secretariat has notified us that by the deadline for nomination, only one valid nomination has been received. Mr. Leung Man Kong is nominated by Mr. Dominic Lee, seconded by Ms. Lam So Wai. As Mr. Leung Man Kong is not a chairman of another panel, nor is a chairman or deputy chairman of a relevant government advisory body. In accordance with the rules of procedure and the House rules, I announce Mr. Leung Man Kong elected as deputy chairman of the panel on housing for the 2022 session. We have completed agenda item 1. We now move on to agenda item 2, which is the proposed schedule of meetings for the 2022 session. In the last term, we hold our meetings on the first Monday of every month at 2:30 in the afternoon. If members agree, we will continue to use this time period. And please take note of the proposed schedule of meetings. As the first Monday in May is a public holiday, we will move the meeting date to May 3rd to be held at 4:30 in the afternoon. If members all agree, we will move on to the items for discussion for the next meeting. For the regular meeting on February 16th, or rather, on February 16th, we're going to hold the debate on the policy address. The Secretariat has already arranged for us at our next regular meeting on February 7th to hear from the Secretary for Transport and Housing on the policy briefing. Do members agree to this arrangement? So on the next meeting, we are going to first hear from the STH on the policy briefing, and the Secretary will tell us about long-term housing strategy 2021 annual report progress and plans for design for public housing. Other than the policy briefing, we are also going to discuss one more item, which is Head 711 project number B08471, public transport interchange at Tak Tin Street and related road improvement works in Lam Tin. If members all agree, these two would be the items for discussion at our next regular meeting on February 7th. the Deputy Chairman and I will meet with the Secretary for Transport and Housing to discuss a working plan from March to July of this year. If members have any suggestions and proposals, please submit them in writing, or you may like to make a verbal proposal right now. Mr. Michael Tan and then Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to speak about it today. Recently, the government passed the management of or the monitoring of rent for subdivided units. I really do not agree to this. During this empty window period, the landlords have highly increased the rental rates. I really want the government to give us an update. Is the government going to do something about that? Secondly, on restrictions on the sales of housing, I really want the government to give us an update on that as well. Thank you, Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you. The government has identified 10 years worth of land supply but hasn't committed to providing public housing within 3 years. Our policy objective is to let people receive housing in within 3 years. I'd like the government to also talk about the arrangements for sales of public housing, because many people wish to do so. Since we now also have this, perhaps we could discuss about this arrangement, since there are sales of other housing as well. Dr. David Lam. Thank you. I know that people are concerned with the monitoring of rent, and I hope that we'll be able to set up a concern group for grassroots families to look into rent subsidies and to look into the matters of spiking water and electricity bills in subdivided units. I really hope that the Madam Chair can allow us to follow up on that issue. Secondly, on redevelopment of old housing estates such as Da Hang Estate, Wang Cheng and Kowloon Bay, I know that people are also concerned with industrial buildings being transitioned into public housing. I want to see Dr. David Lam. We now face an aging population issue, and then we must try to take care of the needs of the elderly. I hope that we'll be able to carry out a discussion so that the public housing designed in the future would better accommodate their needs. I agree with Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. I hope that we'll be able to set the target of providing housing within 3 years. And we see that many public housing estate tenants hope to be able to buy back their own units. So we should discuss about the tenant purchase scheme. In Tung Chung, there's going to be a large development with over 100,000 people moving in. That includes the public housing as well. So what would the planning be? I hope we can also discuss that further. Some of the old public housing estates such as Swa Fu Estate will be redeveloped. I also want to follow up on the updates. Mr. Leung Man Kong. Thank you. I hope we can continue with past work first on the review of the rent on public housing units. I hope that the administration can listen to our views. And second, on and GFS maybe sometimes it may not really be suitable for some of the residents. I hope that you would also listen to our comments on that. The CE has suggested also a scheme for the tenant purchase scheme. I hope you would also look into the long-term impact on that. On the public housing rent, we keep to a practice that every time we have a discussion, every time would have a discussion of that. So don't worry. Next, Mr. Stanley. The FTU is very concerned with the housing problem. And we worry about the supply of public housing, and I agree that we should provide such housing within 3 years. But then there is no timetable and no set target from the government right now. We really must monitor the government in setting out the roadmap and the blueprint so that we'll be really able to reach the 3-year target. We should place public housing design and development as our top priority. We really should separate the public and private market to really solve the long waiting time. Dr. Hong, I see that the waiting time for a couple is quite long, and then you have to meet the requirement of $19,000 a month in pay. But then if both work, then it's very hard to meet the requirement. We find that it's very hard for some people to purchase housing because there is not a lot of options. In recent years, a private market has come up with a new option. You can mortgage half. You can keep the whole ownership and then mortgage half of the flat. And the government said that this is a very good suggestion, and they will look into that. I hope that they would really explore it, and then to try to provide more options for those who are unable to afford private housing yet do not meet the requirements for public housing. For the housing problem, I'm sure the whole city is concerned about that issue, and this is also of utmost importance to the 90 legislators here. We hope that everyone will be able to have a safe home. Land has been donated by some conglomerates to provide transitional housing. How can we also support the infrastructure? Otherwise, people will find it inconvenient to move into these housing in the suburban areas. Mr. Stanley suggested 2 indicators, and I agree with him. We can look into importing labor to help build public housing to accommodate the demands. And thirdly, which is the most important one, is to try to set up KPIs. Can the government set up a blueprint or a roadmap, a timetable, so that the members of the public can also monitor the progress? Thank you.
Any other suggestions from members? If not, I will meet the Secretary later with the Deputy Chairman to discuss our items between March and July. Any other business? If not, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.